What up? What up? Let me get set up on my phone so I can peep the chat if there's anybody in there. It is Friday, man. It's crazy. This year is almost over. It's almost Christmas time, which means it's almost New Year's, which means it's almost 2022. Yeah. All right, audio is good. What up, Ike? You normally don't be in here, right? Any be on the road to wherever you going, or you got there, or you about to leave? I know it's always crazy when I do these lives and I be drinking whiskey at 9 in the morning. I only do it. Well, I enjoy whiskey, but I only do it because it's just cool to do it on the live. I enjoy whiskey. Yeah, I said you normally don't be in here right when I start. I said, are you on your way to Tucson, or you already there? Or you about to go? Oh. So for the folks coming in, getting the kids ready, yeah, I know how that be. Well, I know how that be. I don't have kids, but I know how that be though. What you doing in Arizona? You got some photo stuff? That's what's up. That's what's up. Oh man. Oh. So for anybody rewatching this, SJ Square Photo, he dropped his DAP video that I did with him a few weeks back. So first of all, go check that out. But let me move this so that way I'm not having to look to the side all the time. So let me say, I'm gonna explain what it is in a minute, but let me just say, like, as a photographer, you had those moments here or there where it humbles you a little bit and you realize that maybe you're not as good as you thought you were. And that's how I felt when I did that DAP. And I'm about to clean some of my gear while I'm talking to y'all. So the DAP basically is two photographers. It stands for dope ass photographer. I love the challenge, man. The challenge is hella cool. So it stands for dope ass photographer. And it's basically, it's kind of like if you know anything about horse, if you play horse as a kid or pig, it's the same premise. So each photographer gets 5 rounds. Oh, up to five. Hold up. There's up to 5 rounds. Each photographer gets 5 shots per round, and then the model chooses each round who the letter goes to, and then the first photographer that gets the DAP is the winner. So the one I did with him was number 5. So I've watched all the other ones, and sometimes like you watch stuff, and it seems like you're sitting on the couch and you're like, I could do that. Like I would crush that. I'm not necessarily saying like I went into it saying I'm gonna crush that, but I definitely was like, yeah, no, that looks like a good time. I could definitely get down with that. So the thing about the challenge though is that each round you only get one test shot. Then you get those 5 shots. And then you throw flash into it. So that means you basically get one shot to get your flash right, which is very difficult, way more difficult than I would have thought it would be. So you get that one test shot, and then every time you move and your light's changing, your location's changing, your frame, your composition, all that, uh, you don't get to retest the light. So, you basically have to take what you gathered from that first test shot, try to get your settings right for the first actual shot. And then every time you move it, assess, okay, I moved the light over here. The light's just as close. It's not as close. Let me turn it up. Let me turn it down. It was, man, the struggle was real. So what it made me realize when I say sometimes as photographers, stuff happens and it makes you realize you're not as good as you thought you were. It made me realize that I have a lot of room to get better at doing photo stuff under real deal pressure. Like if it was a situation where I literally only had a minute to get a shot of somebody, I don't know that I would do too well in that kind of situation. Because as a portrait photographer, I typically have all the time in the world to set up my shot. So um I can do a couple test shots, look at it, make sure it's good, change it up. And even if I'm like in a situation where something happens, gear malfunction, or I got to figure something out, or a shot's not looking good and I got to change it, or location, or something happens to where I got to think on the fly, I can do that. But it still isn't as much pressure as you're under when you only have 5 shots. Like 5 shots, crazy. Yeah, Ike, man, and that I wish I'd have brought my light meter, but see, going into it, I'm not gonna front. Going into it, I didn't think it would be that hard. Like I'm just like, I use flash all the time. I know my gear. I do portraits all the time. So I'm thinking, how hard could it be? Famous last words, right? So yeah, I mean, if I would have had a light meter, that'd have been legit for sure. Now I don't know if that would have. I don't think that would have been cheating, but uh yeah, if I'd have had a light meter, it would have made a big difference. But it definitely made me realize that I could get better at situations like that where if I got to get a shot real quick, I got 30 seconds to get a shot, and I'm using flash and I got to get it, and there's no redos. Don't get to redo it. I could definitely get better at that for sure. But man, I love the challenge, man. The challenge is it definitely is a fun challenge for sure. And yeah, it was a good time. I want to try to bring it to LA, but I gotta find some photographers here. I really haven't networked with a lot of photographers out here since I've been here. So I definitely need to do that. But yeah, it's like as photographers, like I would definitely say I'm a photographer that never feels like I know it all. Like there's a lot of photographers that are better than me. It's like I'm confident in what I do, and I feel like I deliver for the clients that hire me, but as a photographer, like I'm always trying to get better, trying to grow, trying to evolve as a photographer, because something that, may work today, uh, it may not be good for tomorrow. So I always got to try to evolve. Ike, you know what, man? Surprisingly, I never used TTL. Um, for no reason. I don't know. I've never. I think it's just because when I learned how to use Flash, like when I really got into Flash, I was using Young Nuo speed lights, didn't have TTL. So I kind of just came into it not even having TTL be something that's on my brain. But you're right. The TTL would have definitely worked hella good in that situation for sure. And my mind just didn't. It just didn't go there. Yeah, it didn't go there. I mean, the trigger could support it. The flash could support it. Yeah, my mind just didn't go there at all because I never used TTL ever. Um, so yeah, as a just as a photographer, like I'm always trying to improve, get better. And I like having stuff like this where it makes me, I would say it humbles you a little bit. Not that I went into it super cocky, but I could definitely tell you after that first round, and I tanked that first round. After that first round, I was like, I I might get embarrassed. So it definitely humbles you for sure. But yeah, it was a good time. So definitely after this live, go peep his channel and you can see that. He dropped one with T Mid last week, I think. So definitely go drop it. Go check that out. Yeah, Mid, you didn't recommend that, man. You didn't tell me that when we was on location, brother. But those are the things. But you know what I do, and I didn't necessarily do it for this, but just something I do as a photographer that just might be helpful to anybody listening to this. So every session that I do, I have a spreadsheet. Of course, go figure, me with a spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet and I annotate in the spreadsheet, the cameras that I use, the lenses that I use, the lighting, the modifiers, all that stuff, just so that way I know. But the most important thing that I put in that spreadsheet is I put what I did right and what I could do better next time. Because if when you shoot a lot, you think about stuff either on location or after the fact, and when you're going through the pictures. But if you shoot enough, it's hard to remember all that stuff. So I like to write that down, just so that way I can reference that back and say, okay, the next time I'm in a situation like this, let me do something different. Let me learn from the mistakes that I made in this session. And every session, there's always things that I did good, and there's things that I could have done better. I think as photographers sometimes we are really hard on ourselves, but I'm always trying to grow and get better. So every shoot I do that, so that way I could just go back and look at that stuff. And then it's kind of cool when you go back and look at a session that you did a year ago or 2 years ago, and you look at the stuff that you're like, yeah, I need to do different. I should have done this. I can improve here. And then you look at where you are current time and you see that you've applied that stuff or you've made those changes. It just kind of just assures you that you're moving in the right direction. What up, SJ? What up, Scott? What up, Fel? After many decades, I still find myself learning things I did not know. When I get a new camera, which is not often, it will take me many days to start to become comfortable using it. No doubt, man. No doubt. Like I've been doing professional photography for 8 years, and I still feel like I'm constantly learning, and I always have that drive to learn because I always want to get better. And sometimes like I struggle with myself because I'm always like, am I? Is this like an endless quest? It's like, will I ever be satisfied with where I am as a photographer? Will I ever look at my work and be like, this is great work? Or will I always look at it with a critical eye and say, I could have done something better? That's always the struggle because we do always want to get better, right? So you do always want to try to find areas where you can improve. But at the same time, it's like sometimes you just have to just be like, yeah, like I rocked that one. Like that was good. Like I did everything the way I should have done that on that shoot. Makes me think back to a time when I was at my old job, and one of my bosses, great boss, but every time something would go wrong, he would always ask us to look at what we could have done different. And sometimes it's just like I couldn't have done anything different. Like sometimes it's on other people. That doesn't even really relate to photography, but it just puts into perspective. It's like sometimes we just have to just be like, yeah, we did good on that one. Like, you could always technically find something that you could have done different, but for that shoot, for that situation, those circumstances, that client, sometimes you knock it out the park and you just do good with it. So, uh, what I realize right now is that I'm terrible at multitasking. Like I'm trying to clean this stuff and talk at the same time, and I obviously need to do some mental stuff to be able to do two things at one time. Because I'm like I start talking and I can't clean. I start cleaning, I stop talking. So yeah, man. It's Friday. We made it. What out of curiosity, what do you guys does anybody have any New Year's Eve plans? Christmas plans? SJ, you came through with the win on the edits though. I think, man, mid, you swept it, right? You got both wins, yeah. See, this is how I know I'm getting old. I'm looking for this. It's right here. I'm looking everywhere. It was good. Real talk though, SJ. And looking at it, I would definitely say I'm surprised I got that second round. Like I was like I was fine with the images themselves. Like I feel like they were cool. Like the images were cool, and I mean I feel like I edited them cool, but they were a little stale though in terms of just the composition, the posing, all that stuff. They was definitely a little stale. I've been thinking since my last shoot that I have to work on many things and practice more and work especially on things where I suck, like knowing how to model. Man, I think as photographers, Phil, I think man, posing people is by far one of the hardest things to do. Like you could know your gear in and out. You could be a master at lighting. Um, but posing people, it could be tough. But and I would be the first to admit, like I'm not great at posing. And because I'm not great at posing, I think subconsciously I'm the type of photographer I really don't like pose stuff anyway. And I know that sounds like a cop out. Like, I don't like to pose. It's just that, it's not my thing. But I prefer for the people that I'm photographing to be in positions that's comfortable for them. Because I remember as a kid, like every time I would have to do pictures, they would make you sit a certain way. They would make you do stuff that wasn't comfortable, like it wasn't natural to you. So in my mind as a photographer, I'm always thinking, okay, if I pose them a certain way and it's not natural or comfortable to them, what are they gonna think when they see the pictures? They might be like, yeah, cool pictures, they nice pictures, but they're gonna be thinking about how uncomfortable it was. Now, sometimes I do have them do stuff that's not comfortable, and I'm just like, just trust me, like the picture's gonna look dope. But that's normally more creative shoots and not necessarily client work. But for me, it's like I would rather my clients be more connected with me as a photographer and giving me the emotion than me worrying about the pose and stuff. And it's like I'll fix stuff. Like I always say, like I direct and not pose. Like I will kind of let them get into a position. So it's like whatever I want them to do, go stand on that rail over there. So I let them go stand on that rail and I look to see what they do. Like, because when you do something, you're gonna do what's comfortable for you. You know what I'm saying? It may not look good, but you're gonna do what's comfortable for you. So I'm gonna send them over to the rail, say, okay. And then from there, I'm just gonna tweak it so that it looks good. I'm not gonna change it up so much to the point where they're necessarily uncomfortable. I'm just gonna tweak it a little bit to where they look good. Because really, at the end of the day, the stuff that we as photographers fret over, your clients, they don't care. Like, they wouldn't even notice. They really don't care. It's like, so when you post your stuff in, forums, or photographers are looking at your work and they're like, oh, you cropped off the foot, you cropped off the arm, I try not to do stuff like that, right? But I guarantee you, if you give just a normal client a picture and everything is good about it, the lighting's good, like, they look good, their expression, the emotion, everything is good, but you cropped off a foot, guarantee you they're still gonna love that image. Like, they're not gonna care. So really, like, for me, it's like, when it comes to posing, what works for me is just letting them be natural, and then I just adjust it from there. If I had to do like a session where I legit, like, sometimes I work with people that just, they're just, I don't want to say they're awkward, but they just don't, like, you have those people, if you're just like, okay, stand there, they literally stand straight up, no curve in the body whatsoever, no bend in the joints, like, they just stand straight onto the camera, just standing straight. Those are tough. Those are tough because they don't give you much to work with. I watched Bambi Cantrell and Sue Bryce. Ike, I'm gonna have to look them up. Yeah, posing when I run an idea, pick up my iPad, brought a food. Yeah, man, SJ, that's definitely the thing too. Like, uh, usually every shoot that I go into, I find some inspiration photos just to kind of, just in case if I get completely stuck, have a brain fart, or if what they're doing just isn't working and I kind of need to give them a little bit more direction, I definitely will refer back to some inspiration photos that I have. And the thing about it, like, and I try not to, I typically don't just like, okay, here's a pose, here's a picture of the pose, get yourself into this pose. I typically don't do that because a lot of times, like, posing depends on the person, and that's why, like, I hate when clients send me stuff and they're like, I want to do this exact pose, because it's like, you might not look as good as they look. But where it's nice is, if I need a little bit of inspiration, if I have a brain fart, I can kind of start with that inspiration pose, and then almost always, if you start with that, things will start flowing, and then you'll just start changing stuff up, and it'll turn into a whole stuff, and then that just keeps it going. Like, sometimes you just kind of need that little bit of a kickstart, and then stuff just flows from there. Uh, True, but some of them blame you if they look bad, or they expect you to know to do that. I got grilled by a chick and telling me I need to learn to do that. That's true. I mean, that is true, and I guess, as a photographer, it's like we do have some responsibility to make our clients look good, but we aren't like, we can't do everything. Like, photography, it really is a collaboration. Like, that's one of the core values of my company, is collaboration. It really is a collaboration. Like, a client cannot show up and expect the photographer to do everything and then still make them look good. Like, the client has to meet you halfway for you guys to really make that work. Like, if you have someone that doesn't know how to pose, doesn't have personality, doesn't have any of that, and they show up to a shoot, like, you as a photographer, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're only going to be able to do so much. Like, the client's got to meet you halfway. But yeah, I mean, some clients can be unrealistic and expect you to know, but I would use that as a learning opportunity, right? If I have a session and my client is telling me, like, I need to learn how to do this stuff, to me, like, I failed in terms of, I didn't take charge enough of the shoot. Like, even if you don't know what you're doing, if you at least just make it seem like you know what you're doing and you're in charge, that typically is enough, you know. So it's like if I have a client that doesn't really know what to do, and then they're telling me I need to learn how to tell them what to do, to me, like, yeah, that's an area of improvement for me. Because even if I don't, I should just have them do stuff, even if it looks terrible. Like they don't have to know that, and then eventually we'll stumble across something that looks good, and then we'll have some solid stuff. So that's kind of how I see that. But Chris, family's hard, man. Family's hard, especially if there's young kids, man. Uh, Old school was amazing when it comes to poses on Jerry. Yeah, I've watched some of Jerry Jonas' stuff. He uses that girl all the time. Sometimes she be looking like she don't be wanting to be there. She be looking at him like he crazy. Trying to see more photographers that are male and they instantly know how to pose like a female. It is hard for me to know all of the female poses for sure. Did you answer your name here? Now I can tell you what though, I don't like Instagram. I just took Instagram off my phone actually. But like your Instagram and TikToks and stuff like that, depending upon like the demographic of your client base, hit those up because they'll let you know what how these females wanting to pose and what is I use it loosely, but what is looking good. Peter, he's good. The only thing about Peter is, I mean, he definitely is more of a fashion. Well, not even fashion. He's in a certain market that I don't know that his I don't know that his stuff would necessarily help a lot with your typical like on location portrait stuff. Because I mean, he obviously deals with, well, they're not all models. He just put out a video where it was her first time. Yeah, I like his stuff. Like I've watched Peter for a while, uh, and I remember when I started watching this video, I caught myself saying "cool" all the time because he always be like "cool, cool, 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 cool." And I remember I did like a session like 2 weeks after I first started watching his stuff, and I kept saying it all the time, and I'm like, man, that dude done rubbed off on me, man. Uh, but yeah, he gives some good tips for sure. It's just, you know, the thing about posing stuff like for people like that is that stuff, it works good in studio sessions. It's not as easy to apply that stuff with on location stuff if you don't have the time. Like if you're doing like a, you know, like a senior shoot or something like that, and you know, I mean, it's a 2 or 3 hour session, you know, you have time to work through all that stuff and you can kind of do that and make it work. But if your sessions are short, like my portrait sessions are 30 to 45 minutes, you know, it's like I'm in and out. You don't always have time to try to work with them to get them into these poses. And it's, you know, the more you try to work with them, if they don't get it, the more you lose them. So you really have to know when to give up on it. It's like if you're trying to get them in a pose and it's not working, you just got to go to the next thing. And then you can try to come back to it. But if you try to spend 5, 10 minutes trying to get one shot of this one pose, you're gonna lose them because they're gonna know that they're not doing it right. And they're gonna feel like you're frustrated. They're going to lose confidence. It destroys the whole flow of the session. So you just have to, you know, it's like if it's me, if I want to try something, I'm going to give it 10, 15 seconds. If I can't figure it out, I'm going to move on. And then maybe I'll try to go back to it if I think the pose is dope. Maybe I won't. But you just got to keep it moving. And it's like I'm shooting through all that. And like, yeah, you know, looks good, looks good. It may look terrible, but I'm not going to say that. Risky, Mark. The thing is, you don't have to know everything. You just have to have a few foundation points. Once you have your foundation down, you just adjust from there. Man, I co-sign that 100%. 100%. If you have your core, like if you had like a core like 3 to 5, that it's like this is what you do with every client. If you have your core, almost every person you work with, and I say almost because some people they just not good at taking pictures, but almost every client that you'll have you'll be able to build off of that. Like once you start with something, you get warmed up, and then they get warmed up. You have some core stuff that you know how to get them in it just right. So you show them the pictures, they're like, yeah, these are dope. I'm looking good. At that point, I'm telling you, like stuff will just flow from there. And then, what I normally try to do on my sessions is I'll take, if they're in, I say pose, but like if they're how they are, I would basically try to exhaust everything about that position. And I exhaust that in terms of framing, composition, angles, so I'm getting in close, I'm going further away. We playing around with the hands, we playing around with the head, playing around with the hair, all of these things. Like you could have them in one spot and you could literally get 10 or 15 different looks. And you really didn't even have to do anything. So that works out really well if you have the business model where you sell your pictures separately, which is how I do it, because it gives a lot of variety. And so if you have a lot of variety, they could be like, yo, like this one's the, I mean, you could have someone buy 5, 7, 10 images from the same moment just because you make them all look different with how you frame it, how close, how far away, all of those things. You could just change it up. And that's always helped me because like sometimes I'll be in locations where there's just not a whole lot to work with, or I'm just in a spot where, I'm kind of confined to a smaller space. So I really have to say, how can I utilize this space and get the most amount of shots to try to make the most amount of money, obviously. So yeah, you just have to capitalize on that stuff. But yeah, no doubt, man. Ike, that's so true, bro. To engage them in conversation. Building rapport is so important because most people are not confident of their appearance. I would also agree with that as well. And that's where I feel like there's photographers out there that are really great photographers, but they're not great at business. They don't do good business because photography obviously is about taking pictures, but when you do it professionally, your customer service and your business aspect is infinitely more important. Like just getting good pictures is a small part of it, but to get those good pictures, you really have to have that personality. Like I've been at places where there's other people shooting, and I mean the photographer is just like if you think about like college lecture, like just how they portray it on TV, just dry, dull, boring. That's how some photographers are. And for a lot of people, that just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So that's so true. Like if you get good conversation to the point where they're relaxed and they're thinking more about having the conversation than they are about you taking their picture, you're going to get better pictures every single time. Because most people, even people that are used to being in front of a camera, there's just something about like when you're having your picture taken, you tend to just tense up and become overly critical of yourself. Especially if you're familiar with pictures and you know that like they pick up on all the details, you start thinking about that in your mind. So if you talk to people and you got good conversation, well, when you're talking, you can't be thinking about those things anymore. You're just having the conversation. So that's key. Makes such a big difference. Forward work on those foundations. Yep. Yep. No doubt. No doubt the conversation is key. Now, I could definitely tell you I've had some clients that cuz like sometimes you're going to get people who are introverts, right? And they're just it's like you could say like no matter what, like you can get people to like open up, laugh, have conversation. That's not easy sometimes. Like sometimes there are people that just they're just not the type of person to really strike conversation. So you know how like sometimes you be talking to someone and you ask them a question and they just answer the question and that's it. Like normally, it's like, oh, did you have a good day today? Yes. Like normally, like people would be like, yeah, and then they would start to add like what they did or whatever. There's some people that they're just like, yeah. And I've had clients like that where it's like, you try to have conversation, you try to, get a little bit out of them so that way you can keep that conversation going and they just don't give you much to work with. And so in situations like that, believe it or not, I typically tend to go the other way. It's like if I'm trying to talk to someone and they're really not engaging, I feel like it would make it more awkward for me to keep talking because to me, like I see that as they're just not the type that want to talk. So instead of just having that kind of conversation, I typically just keep it centered around the photo shoot. So instead of having random conversation, I let them know what I'm doing. Say, okay, we're gonna move over here. I'm gonna put you over here, and we're gonna try to do this. So that way, because sometimes that's that might be all that people care about. Like, what do you need me to do? Like, tell me what you need me to do, and I'm gonna do it. And that's really the case for people that are at photo shoots that didn't want to be there. It's really common for men. Like I don't know if you guys shoot couples or families, but a lot of times it's very difficult to get through to the guy because a lot of guys don't be wanting to be there. Like that be the lady that wants to have those pictures taken. It's different if it's like engagement, but when it's just like couple stuff or family stuff, guys don't be wanting to be there. Kids that way too. Like the teenage sons, man, like they don't be digging the picture. So trying to connect with them is tough. So I've just learned that you can't try to press it because that does the opposite. So man, no doubt. If you want to be a better photographer, become a better person. No doubt. That's a quote to put on the wall. Definitely a quote to put on the wall. That's the key, man. If you do this for a business, that's definitely the key. And I know Ike does it full time, so he definitely can relate to that. That a lot of it is if you connect with your client, you can sell twice as much. If you make them feel good. Cause see the thing the thing about like when people come to a photo shoot, yeah, they definitely want to get their pictures taken, but I think inside, they want to have a good time as well. Like nobody wants like that JC Penney experience anymore where you just kind of show up and everything is stale, dry, boring. It's like, nah, you go and you want to have a good experience. You want to have a good time, especially if there's, family involved or engagement, something like that. Like, you want to be excited, you want to have a good time. So the more you can give them an experience, the more you can sell. And the reason for that is because the same way when you hear a song and it brings back memories, or you smell a scent and it brings back memories, pictures are the same way. So, and I guess this kind of is more if you have the approach of you separate your session from your pictures, but you take amazing pictures and that's great. But if you take amazing pictures and you associate with those pictures an amazing time, an amazing experience, when they look at those pictures, not only are they looking at the pictures and thinking about how great the pictures are, but they're thinking about how good of a time they had taking those pictures. And it's kind of like a dopamine effect to the point where it's just like you want more and they'll buy more. So if you take good pictures and give your client the experience, the rest will take care of itself. AP Studios, man. Um, I'm gonna be frank with you. I think there's a lot of photographers that wouldn't necessarily want to show the real stuff because the reality on a photo shoot, you typically like. Let me speak for myself. I don't knock it out the park the entire photo shoot. Like if somebody's watching me do a session, like there's definitely going to be times where they're going to be like, he fumbled that a little bit. Like I don't get it right 100% of the time. Now, I don't have any problem whatsoever showcasing that. And in 2022, I'm definitely going to do more behind the scene photo stuff. I'm going to bring that to my channel 100%. I don't have a problem showing that stuff, but I do think a lot of photographers, I just don't think that they're comfortable enough to allow someone to see the raw side of photography stuff. You know, they want to show you the good points, you know, where they said the right thing, they got them in the right pose, they took the right picture. A lot of people don't want you to see the fumbles that you have. And as photographers, we always will have them. Like, I don't think there's any photographer that is just like from start to finish, they do everything right. It isn't that way. But a lot of people just aren't comfortable to showcase that. I personally don't care because it's like that's just photography. Like that's just the way it go. And I mean, I'm always learning anyway. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm going to fumble. That's how you learn. That's how you get better. You make mistakes and then you learn from those. But it's funny. It's funny. Yeah, but yeah, you know, I definitely want to bring more of that. It's just it definitely is for me. It's a struggle to try to get all of the moving parts uh to record while I'm doing photo stuff because my mind just don't be going there. And I've been working on this same lens for like 30 minutes. I've cleaned nothing. Yeah, 100%. You definitely show it all. What is my light setup right now? So um I just have a light right here, my FV-150, which is, let's see. So here's right outside the frame. So a hand length right outside the frame. And then so yeah, that with just a little 20-inch deep para with the grid. And then back here, right here, I have just a little LED panel that I just did a little review on. Just putting a little light back there. And then back right over by the camera here, there's another LED panel, just putting a little light. Yeah, I wanna see that, SJ. I definitely like to see that because you know it's kind of like you know, in an Instagram world where you know everybody just posts all the good stuff, you know, about their life, and then people look at it and think like, oh, so and so just has the best life, and it's like, no, I mean they show you what they want you to see, and they just don't show you all the stuff that isn't good. I want to see more of the stuff that isn't good because I want people, especially people that's just getting into the game, like I want them to know that it's like when you look at a photographer and they're knocking it out the park and they're doing great work, like they didn't start there. You know, it's like they started making mistakes just like everybody else, and their work probably wasn't the greatest when they started out either, but they put in that work and they grew, they got better, they evolved. And so I just want more up and coming photographers to really understand that, you know, it's not this overnight thing. Like you don't watch YouTube for a couple weeks and then go out and start taking amazing portraits. Like that's just not how it works. It's like you got to go grind it out, you got to make your mistakes, and then you learn from those mistakes and you get better over time. Man, I you ain't never lied, man. It definitely takes a long time to make these YouTube videos. I've talked about it a few times on my channel. Man, it's even, man, even the videos that you would think would be quick, they definitely still take a long time, man. Yep. No, I definitely get that one. Get that one. I for sure. You know, that really is the struggle with YouTube because you know you want to put out your best work because like when you think about it, as a YouTube creator, every video you put out, that video is going to be the first video that someone watches on your channel. There's going to be people out there that it's like that's the first time that they're introduced to you and what you're doing on your channel. So you kind of have this pressure to make sure every video that you put out, I don't want to say is a banger, but you do, you try to make sure that everyone is a banger, because you put out that video, you're going to get these people for the first time. You want to sync them, you want to hook them. And so it's tough, because you're like, if you got a video that you're just like, the video is all right, but it's not my best, you're hesitant to put it out. But then, and I mean, I don't know, you might not really care too much anymore, just because I mean you've got such a big following. But for like smaller channels, you're hesitant. If you put in all this time into a video and the video's not that great, you're not necessarily in love with it, but you're like, you don't want to not put it out, because then you don't want to have a gap in between you putting out videos, right? So especially like if you only put out a video a week or a video every couple weeks, if you put in all this time to do a video, the video is as so, but you haven't put out a video in a week and a half, you know that if you got to go do another video, it's going to be another week and a half, 2 weeks. So now you're going to go 3-4 weeks without a video. So you feel a little bit of pressure to just put the video out anyway, just to have content. But then that shoots you in the foot, because that's what you really shouldn't do. You shouldn't just put out videos just for the sake of putting out content. So it's kind of like this perpetual, like, it's hard, man. For real. Yeah. So yeah, it's the struggle is definitely real out there, for sure. I will say, like, the lives, if you really, yeah, the lives will definitely expose some folks for sure, because those lives, man, everything is out there. There ain't no tweaking stuff on the lives. Like, everything is gonna be out there. Um, I definitely be the worst at keeping up with this stuff sometimes. Let's see. Video I just put out on Wednesday, I did the same theme, the same model. On the first shoot was completely bad, so we redid our shoot. Yeah, so SJ, when I watched that video, I was curious what was bad about the shoot. And I don't know if you're gonna put the video out or not, but like, what about the shoot wasn't good for you? Now I remember, SJ, I remember you saying you wasn't sure if you wanted to put it out or not. I think you should. But I'm just curious what you don't have to go into too much detail, but I'm just curious, like, what about it wasn't good that you felt like you needed to redo it? I got to keep track of the time, because I got to be somewhere at 11. I can't be late, so got to make sure, keep track of that time, location, weather. Yeah, it definitely I've definitely had some stuff where things just don't pop off the way I thought they was going to pop off. That's the thing about that I don't like. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you live in LA, sunny weather is great." I actually don't really like it, because I never get, like, I love pictures that have the environment in it, and you get, the skies. Like Mid, when he did that video in Miami a couple weeks ago, like, I'm always jealous of skies like that, because I don't get those here. And the few that you get here, I mean, it's hit or miss. It's like you got to be out when it happens, because you can't plan for it. been making sure most things look as good as possible so I don't have to do too much in post, like removing trash or anything in the background. That's the key. Like when it comes to like editing, retouching, I don't do much retouching, so I wouldn't. I'm far from like a great retoucher because I don't really do a lot of retouching. Um, but that's I would say like that's something that I'm always trying to get better at because sometimes like when I'm on shoots, like in my mind, like I'm always like, okay, let me pay attention to everything so that way I can fix it, and I'm pretty good at doing that with the model, so hair, to the point of what you could see. Like sometimes you just when you look into the viewfinder, even looking on the screen, like you just some stuff you just can't really see it unless you zooming in. And I just move too fast to be zooming in on pictures, checking all this stuff. Um, so I try to do that, but that's always something that I'm like I can get better at because sometimes I get back to the computer and I'm like, oh man, I should have just moved just a foot to the right so that way this would have been this way, or I should have done this, or I should have done that. Uh, yeah, I mean, it definitely. I can say like what you can fix on location that could take you 10 seconds could take you 10 minutes to fix in post. So it definitely makes sense to try to get it right on location. Yeah, no doubt. I've had the same thing where it's like, cause see, here's the catch 22 with that. Model shows up, hair's not on point, face isn't how they want it to be, outfit's not how they want it to be, whatever the case may be. You do the shoot anyway. Again, as a photographer, we can only do so much. Like if you're shooting a model and her makeup is terrible, you can only light that so good to make that not as noticeable. But there's certain things that it's like we can only do so much as photographers. So they show up to a session like that, you shoot them anyway, you send them the pictures, they're gonna hate the pictures. And then it's gonna be your fault. It isn't, but that's how they're gonna see it. It's your fault. So it's just best to just be like, nah, you just gotta make sure stuff is good. I mean, I try to communicate pretty clear with my clients. I mean, it's a little different when you're doing like TFP stuff versus client stuff. Obviously, like client stuff, I try to very professionally and respectfully kind of give them the do's and don'ts. And they're always receptive because I'm just like, I just want you to look good in your pictures. And it's like, if you don't do these things, you won't look good in your pictures. But yeah, sometimes it's best to just redo because that'll save you time. Because what's the point in even doing the shoot just to have images that you're not even going to be able to do anything with? You're not going to want to use them, and then you got to spend all that time trying to fix it in post. No one has time for that, especially if you do this full time. You just don't have time for that. What up, Tron? That's it. Yep, some stuff, man. You definitely don't. Me, you had bad hair. Or your model had bad hair. I'm not sure what you're saying right there. I had a male model that didn't iron his clothes, looked real bad. So the thing about that, like if it's a TFP shoot, I won't do the shoot. I legit wouldn't do the shoot. Because here's the thing: like if I'm doing a TFP, I am looking to get something out of that just as much as they are. Okay. So let's say I'm doing a session because I want some new stuff for a portfolio or I'm working on a project, whatever the case may be. Somebody model shows up, clothes wrinkled as hell. I'm not gonna want to put that in a portfolio. Like, yeah, that had nothing to do with you, but it's still someone's gonna look at that image and they're gonna be like, damn, like homeboy did not like those clothes are hella wrinkled. Like that's just not what you want. So it's a waste of my time to do a shoot like that. Now, if I was doing a shoot, because sometimes I'll do TFP stuff where I'm just testing like a new lighting setup, if I get a new lighting modifier, if I get some kind of new gear that I need to test out, and obviously I don't want to test out on the client, that's a little different. Because then it's like, what's important? It's like I don't care about the shirt. Like I'm not gonna do anything with the pictures anyway. But if it's a TFP, best thing to do, man, just reschedule. If it's a client, if a client showed up and their stuff was wrinkled like that, number one, I'd be like, man, I thought I communicated all this stuff to him. But if a client was to show up like that, you just kind of have to you kind of have to just roll with it. I mean, I'm not gonna reschedule a client shoot. Um, so you just roll with it. I would probably quickly try to minimize it in post if I could, but I can't say I really ran into that because I always try to emphasize like that's one of the things that's like on my list of things to always tell them. Like, because I'm always giving them suggestions on color combinations, what to wear, what not to wear. So I'm always telling them like, yo, like make sure this stuff is good. And I mean, if they were to show up like that, I would probably tell them like, yeah, like that's not gonna look good in the pictures. Like, do you have another shirt or yeah? I mean, I would just keep it real with them. Yeah, that's all you can do. TFP, it's an old school term. It used to stand for time for print back when models would get actual prints to put in a physical portfolio. So the term still sticks around, but a lot of times people just say TF shoots now, time for, or TFD, time for digital. But yeah, basically, it's just a shoot where neither party gets paid money, and you each get photos to use. So the photographer gets to have a model to shoot, and they can use the photos for a portfolio. The model gets photos to use for their portfolio if they want to be a model, or just photos to post on Instagram. So yeah, basically, it's just kind of a collaborative shoot to where no money is exchanged, but both parties get something. They can be the most headaches sometimes, and you definitely get a lot of flakes when you do TF shoots. Yeah, collab. You're right. That definitely is a new term. I'm a little old school. I still say trade shoots. But yeah, definitely collab is the 2021 way of basically saying the same thing. Yeah, I try to do TF stuff just for creative stuff because when you do photography as a business, you have like some creative outlet. You could do some stuff that's creative, but there's limits. It's like you can only push it so far with the paying client versus if I really want to do something outside the box or try something, some inspiration that I have that I want to try something. Those definitely work best with just either TF shoots or paying models. For anybody that works with models, I'm curious, what are your guys' thoughts on paying for a model? And how would you do it? So for me, I have zero issues paying for a model, but the way that I typically do a session, if I'm paying the model, and normally like if I reach out to somebody, like if I reach out to somebody on Instagram and they have, DM me for rates or whatever like that, so okay, it's like okay, probably if I want to work with this person, probably gonna have to pay for it. Not a big deal. Like if they're worth it, like if they got a good look, or if they seem serious about their modeling, I don't have any problem with that. But the way I typically do it is if I pay for a model, um, they don't get any pictures. That's my rule. It's like if I'm having to pay for your time, that's your compensation. Like when you do a TFP shoot, a collab, typically, so the compensation is you're getting images. Like so you're giving me your time that I'm not paying for. I'm giving you a set number of images that you're not paying for. So we both are getting something that would typically cost money that neither one of us is paying for. So if I pay for the model to be there, which is totally fine. I have no issues doing that. Um, I give them zero pictures. And that's what I tell them up front. It's like, especially when I'm reaching out to do collabs, it's like, okay, if you charge, that's cool. I would still love to work with you. You get zero pictures. I would say probably 50-50. There's some people that are like, that's fine. Like they just want to make their money. Like that's their hustle. That's fine. So they make their money. The other half would rather have the pictures. And I think I feel like the ones that would rather have pictures are the ones that they weren't charging that much anyway. So maybe modeling is just kind of a way to make money. I don't know. But yeah, that's just my rule. Like to me, and I mean, this is debatable. Like there's people that don't agree, there's people that do agree. But to me, it's like if I am, and again, like my mindset is just different because I do photography full time. So typically, if I'm shooting people, if I'm shooting a client, like they paid me to be there. So I'm getting paid to be there. So if I'm doing a collab with someone, so now I'm shooting, so I'm taking time out of my day, time away from other stuff that I could be doing that I'm not getting paid for. If I was to then turn around and give you images too, so I had to pay you to be there, and then I'm going to give you images as well that you're also not going to pay for. To me, that's very one-sided. And so I don't do that. And it really doesn't have anything to do with I mean, it really is just straight business for me. It's like if I'm having to have a business expense to have you there, it's like you're compensated. Like, so I'm paying you for your time. Like, here's your money. Thank you very much. Like, I don't owe you anything after that. Now, of course, people will be like, yeah, but you could just, give them some images. I don't do that because like my structure again is like my session and my images are separate. So it's like now I'm not getting paid for the session. I'm giving you images for free. How does that look for my clients that had to pay for both of them? Like it's just like that just doesn't make sense for me to pay you money to be there, but then give you free images too. I don't do that. Nah, man, like I disagree. I don't think it's stingy if I'm having to pay for them to be there. No way, man. No way. It's like you want the money to shoot, that's cool. Then that's what you get. You get the money. It's like I'm not gonna turn around and give you the images as well. Because typically, and I mean, maybe if I posted more to social media, it would be different. But typically, if I do a collab, I really only want one shot to be able to use in a portfolio. That would typically be really what I'm looking to gain from it. So, uh, yes, yeah, nah. That's just my stance, man. Like if I'm paying for your time, I'm not giving you pictures too, and I personally don't see that as being stingy because it's just like, well, like, why should they get paid and get images for free too? I don't. To me, like that doesn't make sense to me. It's like if you want pictures, then we collab. Like I'll give you pictures. Like you give me your time, I'll give you pictures. But it just doesn't make sense for me to pay for your time and then give you value in the product as well. And it's like, okay, I'm getting pictures from you, but I pay for those. So of course I should get pictures. Like of course I should have pictures with you because I paid for you. So, not that's not the same. That's not the same thing. The same thing would be me going to McDonald's, buying a cheeseburger, and then the employee at McDonald's or McDonald's as a corporation saying, "Give me half of that cheeseburger." It's like, why would I do that? Like, I paid you for the burger. Now it's different if I show up and they give me a burger for free and they're like, "Okay, we want half of it." Okay, I mean, I didn't pay for the burger. You gave me the burger for free. Here's half of it. But I'm not going to come pay for my food, then give McDonald's half of my food back. That's how it would be for me if I pay for a model and then give her pictures too. It's like, no way. But if I got some McDonald's fries and somebody asks for my fries, I'm gonna be like, I'll go buy you some fries. Yeah, I mean, everybody. I always say like, whatever works for people is what works for people. Um, yeah, that's just the way I do it, and that wouldn't change. And typically, I mean, if somebody cares about the money, then they really couldn't care less about the pictures. I mean, the pictures would be a bonus, but yep. Sebastian, man, I if so, if I am paying for a model's time, I'm not. They get nothing else from me. Like I am paying for a service. I'm not going to pay for like to me. It's like okay, if you were to go, let's say okay, if you were to take your car to the shop and you're like, okay, I need my brakes done. So you go and they're like, it's going to be $200. So you pay them $200. And then they're like, okay, can you go pick up the stuff for us to do your brakes? You'd be like, what? Like I'm paying you to do this. Like why do I then have to turn around and go do more stuff and come out of pocket to help you do the job that I've paid you to do? Be different if they were like, we're doing it for free. I take my car and someone's doing it for free. Well, how am I gonna tell them like, oh, well, you go and get all the stuff and you do all the work and then that wouldn't be fair to them. So for me, it's just like, nah, I mean, if I'm paying for the model, I'm not covering anything else because I'm paying for a service. They should, in my mind, looking at it from a business perspective, their rate should cover all of their expenses. Like what I charge for a session, that covers what it needs to cover. What I charge for images, that covers what it needs to cover. So a model that's charging that rate should cover whatever it is that they need to have covered to do that session. If it doesn't, then they're not charging right. Posting three first pics to IG and then tell the model, nah, you can't have these photos, they're mine. Like, damn, you took the time to edit them anyways. Might as well slide the ones you already edit so models can promote for you word of mouth. Where does that stop though? I Because I mean there's always things like in that regard, like if you had, like look at your whatever you charge for your stuff. Let's say you had a session and it was 2 hours. By that accord, you could be like, oh well, if they're having a good time, let me just do 4 hours instead of two. Let me do 6 hours instead of two. Let me, since I already edited these, they didn't pay for them. Let me just give them all these anyway. It's like where eventually, like somewhere, there's always going to be a line because, you could go as far as saying, oh man, like hey, there's a client that can't afford my stuff, but they seem like a really nice person. Let me just give me whatever you can give me and I'll do the shoot. Like you wouldn't operate a business that way. It's like there's certain elements to it where there's always going to be a threshold of how much you can do for humanity. So it's like I do get that point, but you're always going to have that line where it's like you can only do so much. It's like you see a homeless person on the side of the street, you could go empty out your life savings and give it to them. But you're not doing that, because there's a line, there's a threshold. So to me, it's just like, yeah, when I look at something like that, I have to look at, it's like word of mouth. Word of mouth is crucial, but it's not a guaranteed thing. So I like to me like I have to have a balance between what I'm willing to give away for free out of hopes that it brings me something else. There's always a balance there for me. So it's like, yeah, okay, I could pay for this model. I can give her some pictures. She may tag me, but oh, okay. So I guess to put it in better perspective, I don't think that if I'm paying like let me think of the right way to say this. If I was doing a collab with a model, models don't hire me. Like my client base isn't models, right? So to even look at it from a word of mouth perspective, if I'm going to get word of mouth, it's going to be people like that model. That is almost useless to me because my clientele is typically not who I would do a collab with. Like if I'm trying to do a collab to do a YouTube video, that's not typically not going to be the people that are hiring me to do work. Now, yeah, you could always say like, well, that person could refer some, like, yes, that's always a possibility, always. But you have to look at it from a realistic point of view. Like if I'm hiring some Instagram model to do pictures just so I can post something on social media, I'm probably not getting much business from that. So if the model undercharged you because she didn't know better, and you said nope, she charged me, so no pick. So basically, you can end up taking advantage of people who don't charge appropriately. Why is if they use it commercially? You decide no idea. Everything, everything ain't gotta be everything. Skate to hand. Absolutely no. If I pay, she gets no play. Yeah, everything is case by case for sure. Uh, it's a good point. It's free advertisement if the model posts the pics. Yeah, yeah. Look, man. The thing is, it's like how I do stuff. I'm not. I wouldn't tell anyone this is how you have to do it. It's everybody does their stuff how they do it, and that's totally cool. Um, it's like whatever works for you as a business or as whatever you're using the pictures for. It's like whatever works for you, that's what you do. It's like you're gonna have, everyone would have, if you're a professional photographer, everyone has their business model. And there's gonna be someone that's gonna be like, that business model is dumb. You should do it this way. It's like, well, this is the business model that works for me. That's the business model that works for you. So it's like, whatever works for you. But it is 10:30 and I cannot be late to this 11. So I'm going to have to sign off from here. As always, I appreciate you guys coming through and giving me some stuff to talk about, talk to you guys. Always appreciate it. So yeah, man, have a great weekend. Be safe, go have fun, do some good stuff. Um, yeah, have fun, do some good stuff. And I will catch you guys. Shoot fashion thing. Just got to hire. Shoot a cover. Headshots. Yeah, so have a good weekend, guys. I got to get out of here. I appreciate you guys. Peace.